I'm going to talk about the glowing age also, and I'm going to tell you a story. It's a musical story of America. And this musical story of America, instead of focusing on wars, focuses on different people coming together, learning how to live together in harmony. There are two main differences between a normal written history and what I'm about to present. One difference is that the time is measured in cycles, environmental water cycles. So each cycle begins with clouds that rain fresh water, which forms a river and ultimately flows into the ocean. A new cycle begins when the vapor evaporated from the ocean forms clouds, rain clouds. The second difference is that instead of environmental water, what passes through our cycles will be community ecology. What's happening in the community? How healthy is it? We will measure that ecology using the music that the community produces, like an indicator of community rhythms and harmony. For instance, the first cycle might be described as a colonial void. No Americans yet, many ethnicities, including indigenous ones. One source describes a continuation of ethnically based meetings amongst enslaved Africans, in which community values were passed from generation to generation, often accompanied by drum, dance, and song. Musically proficient Africans also provided entertainment for enslavers. So in the clouds, we have ethnic African community consciousness arriving in the Americas, increasingly under conditions of enslavement. The rain falls when ethnic Africans share musical expressions within and outside of their communities. The river flows in ongoing struggles to establish and maintain family and community ecologies, including escapes and rebellions, as evidenced in what would eventually become American roots music. At the time, this drumming, dancing, and singing was commodified as plantation music. The freshwater river flowed into the saltwater ocean with a revolutionary war that created an America free from domination by foreign colonial powers. But the Free Republic enacted slave codes to keep Africans enslaved in the subsequent cycle. The Republic also continued westward expansion over indigenous and Mexican community ecologies. The second cycle might be described as a creation story. Black and white Americans were created from many different ethnicities. In the clouds, community rituals such as the ring shout create a single Black community consciousness out of many African ethnicities. The rain fell as Black community musical expressions, such as Negro spirituals and other folk music, were shared. The river flowed in ongoing struggles to establish and maintain families and communities, including escapes and rebellions. It was evidenced in what would eventually become the first music internationally recognized as American. It was commodified as blackface minstrelsy. The freshwater river flowed into the saltwater ocean with the Civil War that brought emancipation from chattel enslavement. With the failure of Reconstruction, however, the Republic enacted Black codes. The Spanish-American War established the Republic as a regional colonial power. It entered global colonial competition, leading to world wars and nuclear weapons in the next cycle. The third cycle might be described as an exodus from oppression and the global deliverance of a gospel message. In the clouds, Community expression, gatherings, and rituals included a blues matrix. It's still rooted in ethnic African community ecologies. The rains fell as community musical expressions were shared, such as blues, gospel blues, jazz, salsa, rock and roll, and rhythm and blues. The rivers flowed as ongoing struggles to establish and maintain families and communities, including political, social, educational, economic, and religious movements, actions, and protests. They were evidenced in what would eventually become known as world music. The music was commodified in the race records and entertainment industry. The blues emerged among Black Americans toward the end of the Civil Wars and began an exodus, a great migration from, one, confinement on plantations that tended to focus community religious expression around an often clandestine ring shop. Two, antebellum prohibitions against education and linguistic, musical, and other arts in the Americas. And three, violent persecution and sharecropper poverty in agricultural river deltas of the Jim Crow South. It left this to a potential for economic opportunity in industrial port cities. The freshwater river flowed into a saltwater ocean in the form of a civil rights movement, not a war this time. It brought legislation to end black code. A new Jim Crow of law and order replaced the black codes with massive for-profit incarceration. The Republic joined other colonial powers in subverting and overturning independence movements to maintain economic dominion over global community ecologies. This led to a war on terrorism in the next cycle. The fourth and current cycle might be thought of as a judgment levied upon a society based on massive for-profit incarceration. In the clouds, multi-ethnic urban community consciousness expressed through the hip-hop social movement is still rooted in ethnic African community ecologies. The acid rain falls as rapid in community gatherings. It transforms under social and commercial stresses into the hardness of conscious rap and God hop. The rivers flow as ongoing struggles to establish and maintain families and communities focused on actual community ecology experience rather than the dominant social narrative. The rivers are commodified as gangster rap. So will the hip-hop generation successfully expose and dethrone white male supremacy, signified, for instance, by statues of Christopher Columbus? Will corporate personhood continue to diminish political power of human personhood in ways that seem to also threaten stated achievements and purposes of the American Revolution? Will globalization continue to defund and privatize government services, functions, and protections? Something can be said definitely right now about progress and looking at all the cycles together. For the first cycle, or the colonial void, African people participated in and contributed to the struggle for independence. They also laid the foundation for American roots music. For the second or creation cycle, black forces tipped the scales to save the Union and end the slavery. Black people also originated the first music recognized internationally as American and showed many newcomers how to become American. For the third or Exodus and Gospel cycle, black religious community led the battle for civil rights, and black music led the conceptualization of world music. For the fourth or Judgment cycle, Afro-American religious experience is rejecting Euro-American religious imagery, and Afro-Americans have introduced multicultural hip-hop hybridity. wade in the water, God's diverse, gifted children sing. God's going to trouble me.